Oh, can I say fuck? No.
Yeah, you
I'm
can
not
say
on
whatever
this.
you want to say. You're Sadie Katz. So here we
I know, right?
Brian Sebastian, Movie Reviews and More, the Women's Broadcast TV Network, WomenOnTV.tv, and IT247 out of Franklin, Tennessee. And I always wanted to talk to this young lady. I always found her fascinating. She never knew I was looking at her, but I was always paying attention to a lot of people. She thinks she had seen me before, but she's never seen me before. But we are Facebook friends, which is really interesting. It's the one and only, and it's Sadie Katz. But before I say anything, I gotta say this. I admire you because not only are you a writer, producer, actress, and director. So I love that. I love when women can do all four things, if not more, and still look good.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. The looking good is good lighting, makeup, and a little bit of sass. So I don't always look
I
great.
believe the sass. I don't think it's the lighting and makeup. No, you look good naturally. You have a good natural look. I can tell. I'm around women all day and all night, so I know these things.
Oh, you poor thing.
No, we all get along. We truly like each other. A lot of times we can't see each other because of obviously events, as you would know. But we truly do like each other, and we're sad when we can't get together.
Oh, I love that. You said that I didn't know that you were watching. You sound like a stalker. I love that. You're like,
well, the thing
you're
is,
interviewing people on the carpet, right? I feel like you've interviewed me.
If you were at Celebrity Connected, I would have had the girls interview you or any of the gifting suite. Some of the red carpet stuff, because I don't like to do red carpets anymore. I like to sit down and do one-on-ones. I'm spoiled like that.
Oh, good.
I love to do all that. Yeah. So you would normally.
The red carpets are weird because everyone's talking. Yeah, the red carpets are weird because everyone's talking and they're like pushing you through, and you have to be really animated to get over like all the noise. And like sometimes they're really fun, but most of the time you're like,
exactly
just trying to spit funny.
I've always been fascinated with your career because I love Scorn. I remember seeing Scorn years ago, and then even Wrong Turn. That was interesting. So my job as movie reviewers, I have to watch all these films. So I'm watching things that people would never even be caught dead watching. And then me, or a couple other people, we would talk about these things because there's always talent coming up. Think of Jamie Lee Curtis. When she first started coming up, where is she now? Think of where your career started off. What was your first film that you started in?
Actually, it's so weird. I started off like my first big like starring role was Nipples and Palm Trees, which wasn't a horror film, and it did really well. It was a rom-com. It did really well on iTunes because of the title. It was actually like a film that was better than the title, but it stayed in the top 100 films on iTunes for like a year, 10 years ago. And today after this, I'm meeting with someone about doing Nipples and Palm Trees Part 2, which is crazy because that doesn't always happen in indie films. But that was my first film. Now, Scorned was the first like big writing credit I got, and my co-writer, you probably know this, was Mark Jones, who's responsible for the Leprechaun franchise, amongst a bunch of other things. But I originally wrote Scorns for me to be, we wrote it for me to be the lead in, but we sold it to Anchor Bay for $2 million, or they funded it for $2 million, and I didn't even get to audition, or they already wanted Annalyn McCord. So ironically, I had already studied that character so much. So when Wrong Turn 6 came about, which ended up being a bigger movie than Scorned, I already knew this kind of crazy, fucked up, super sexed up villain. So I was like ready to go. And I was like determined that that was my moment to kind of seize that, since I didn't get to do Scorned, but I got I wrote it. And we named the character Sadie, and like it was, kind of crazy. So then I got to play a heightened version of that even more so, which was cool.
Well, I always like your personality. I always looked at you as the nice, warm, friendly girl next door who happened to be in horror movies.
Well, you keep thinking that.
Hey.
No, I try to be nice.
As long as it works, right?
I didn't know I was going to do horror films. Yeah, you know what's funny is like I didn't start off doing horror films, but I would be such a nervous. I wanted everything so much. So you go into auditions and you're like, I have a lot of like raw energy, and I would want it so much that when I would go into auditions, I was so hard on myself. So I had all this like woo, and I'd throw up before these silly auditions. And then I realized when I had auditioned for horror films, if I could just fake it when I first went in the room and be really calm, and then they would give me, I'd be chill, and that was my acting part. And then they would ask me to, cry and start screaming. That would be what was like already prepared. So everyone would just stop in the room and go, "How'd you do that?" And I'd be thinking, well, because inside I'm like my nerves are ready to jump out. So then I realized, oh, horror is like this great outlet for me to, you know, just fall apart. And I'm not that shy of a person. So, and with my voice, that's good for horror. And so it was like really fun for me. And then, the horror community is so great because they like, once you're in, you're kind of in.
Well, the funny thing about that is you were mentioning Anchor Bay, and I'm like, well, in Leprechaun series, I was there when all that stuff started through Vidmark, Trimark. My old friend Barry Barnhart's
Yeah.
creator of all of those. And I just think back to the early 1990s when I was running video stores. So at that point, I had to order all of those because this is where I get in 1991, starting to watch every single movie out there. And the reason I remember 1991, because I can't tell you how many movies I watched, I just know it was a lot. So 1992, right up until today, I still keep track of everything I watch. And I still call it home video or on video, because that's how I started labeling it. So my records go back to that in every notebook, how many I watched a month, how many movies I watched in the theater. So what I should be watching still to this day, I should be watching 23 to 28 movies on the big screen, going to the theaters, and then it should total out everything that I'm watching on home video. It should total out to between 703 to 711 films on video. That's where I would normally be. And the reason I know that, because that's pretty much where it would average. So my best year was 2,119. That was 2 years ago. I can't duplicate that anymore because there's so many more movies now. And it's just so many platforms. So it's almost impossible to see everything now. But if you send it to me, I watch it. So I still have that home video mentality. If I had to watch something and we had to make our money back in 6 weeks, you remember the old video days, What we don't have anymore? Video stores. So when you mention iTunes and things like that, I'm like, it brought back memories of that.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, and our, this is really dating me, but I remember when my stepdad, my dad, brought home a VCR, and it was $2,000. It's a
Oh
big
yeah, right,
deal.
yeah.
There was like a video store that opened up, and I would spend, it was really small, and I'm a Libra, so I can't ever make up my mind. And
We're
I would
both Libras.
spend,
I'm a determined Libra.
oh my God, what's your exact birth date?
7th to
I'm
September
October
6th.
13th.
You're October 13th.
Oh, you're on the cusp. You're like a Virgo
But I
Libra.
identify with
That's
the
a good
determined
combo.
Libra, though.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a determined Libra. Like I can't make up my mind on things like what I want to eat, but when it's goal setting, like get the fuck out of my way.
Exactly.
I'm
Nothing can
like, no
stop us
matter what
at that point.
happens. No, are you kidding? Like I feel like even if we're in the midst of an earthquake and our lives are falling apart, like there's a little thing pecking me that goes, you're going to still do this though. Like
Absolutely.
that's the only thing I've always been like, yeah, long-term goals, short-term goals. That's it.
That's why I
So
say we're
I think
between,
that's what
number
keeps me
one and number
alive.
three when it comes to media around the world, because no one can beat us. It's about the work ethic.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was like that as a kid. I would be just super, super determined. And even if it was for like a lip singing contest, I wasn't good, like, you know, lip syncing, remember back in like the 80s and 90s, you didn't have to be that talented at like a talent show. No one had any talent. I don't know. I don't know why all these kids on American Idol, I'm like, I didn't know anyone who had any real talent, but I was like determined to think of some, you know, gimmick for like, oh, I'll throw confetti on the audience and then I'll do this like Paula Abdul dance. And I like, no, I wasn't good, but I would win because I would do all these like silly things, you know, rip off a wig and I
You know,
don't
it's funny. You got me thinking of, you just mentioned Paula. I met Paula in 1987 at Power 106. You know, that's how long Paula and
Oh
I
my God.
were together. Yeah, when she was, she was just getting done of being a Laker cheerleader and her first album was coming out. We debuted on
Was she
96.
so was she on In Living Color? Was that
No,
J-Lo that
that
was
was
on In
Rosie
Living Color?
Perez.
Oh, okay. I mean, Paula Abdul used to be the #1 pop star in the world.
Yep.
Like she was Beyonce. Like who was
Yep.
bigger than Paula Abdul? And I don't know how. I mean, they say that she's kind of nuts and hopped up on pills now, but there was another time that she wasn't. She was
Well, it's
like that
because
time.
she had a plane accident. That's why, if you remember that. She's got a bad back.
Who was that?
So, you know, when you have those things,
Oh,
bad back, bad neck, they will always affect you for the rest of your life. So it's excruciating pain.
right. She's
A
in
lot of people
pain.
forget
I
those things
forgot
like
about
that.
that.
See, I got a good memory.
Yeah.
I'm a Libra.
I well, I have a fairly good short-term memory. Like I can memorize scripts, but I don't know. I think sometimes my brain is like trying to process so much stuff, and then I don't know. I'm famous for like putting my cell phone in the fridge. I don't know, and then I'm looking for it, and I'm like yelling at my fiance, "Have you seen my phone?" And then I go to get like a glass of water, and it's sitting in the fridge.
See, I used to have a lot of the girls do that. They used to always come stay with me. They needed a safe place to be. I'm like, here's your phone, here's your key, here's your wallet. Oh, I'm looking for that. Yeah, it's all right here.
But remember, we still are stuck. Like, this is the one thing men don't understand. We have to spend an extra, you know, hour of our lives devoted to our hair and makeup. And then on top of that, figure out what we're wearing. We can't wear the same thing. So the guys are
No, you
like,
can't.
I don't get why this is a big deal. And, you know, it's something like, well, I changed my earrings 3 times. Like, because I have these really cool earrings. And I said, that's going to be really distracting. So, like, our minds are always having to multitask on like ridiculous things, you know? So, and then the phone and even though we're great multitaskers, we're spending a lot of time and energy on something ridiculous, like just our appearance. And, you know, some girls take that way too far,
Yeah.
especially now
Sadie, I
because you can
have
get
3 computers,
so
laptops
much
I
work
work off,
done.
well, including my cell phone and tablet. So I probably look like a spider in my own view.
Oh my God.
Things done. It doesn't matter if it's Christmas or New Year's. I was working on those days. But the reason I was working, I saw a lot of the stuff coming up to where we are now. So I was prepared for all of this stuff. And I know you only have some
Oh,
time to prepare for a pandemic if you know what's coming on and other people don't know what's coming on. That's why we're doing so well. So I'm proud of the girls because they're part of what I'm doing. I couldn't have done it without them. It's movie reviews and more, but we're women on TV, and I happen to be the lone black male on TV of that, you know? So I'm happy
right.
to totally understand how long it takes. So I'm always looking for women's lingerie, their shoes, eyelashes. Do you guys like this? Would this be good on you? Yeah, where'd you get this? Here, company, I'll see if I can bring them on and they'll give you stuff. That's what I like to do. I can't wear it.
Oh, well, you could if you wanted to, but
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Nah, I'm not into drag. That's all that is. So, you know. Oh, and she froze on me.
right.
There you go.
I hope it's not an embarrassing freeze. Okay.
No, no, no. Hey, I wanted to know, how did you get your last name?
Oh, that's funny because I'm not Jewish. My ex-husband, who I got married to when I was 19, was a Katz. And I always felt like my name should be Sadie Katz, and I had a kid with him. And then we got divorced fairly rapidly, like after 3 years. And Sadie Katz sounded better than Sadie Jones. And even though now I kind of like Sadie Jones, but my son's name was Katz, and my son was part Mexican, so he looked very different from me when he was little, and so I thought it might be nice that we have the same last name, because I was, super blonde, and I had this little cute, little brown-haired little man with like darker brown skin. And so I kept the name, and for auditioning, it was always funny because I would walk in the room and they go, if they were Jewish, they go, Sadie Katz, you don't look Jewish to me. And I wouldn't say anything, and they would get a kick out of it. And so I enjoyed it. And now it's kind of odd, but it's kind of, everyone always calls me Sadie Katz, so I can't get rid of it at this time. And it's kind of fun.
It works. It's a good name. You picked the right thing.
Yeah. But I have had I did a writing contest, and I only talked to them on the phone, and I had these conversations with them, and I sent them this kind of crude script, but they picked it up and I won. And then I came in, it was just a little, not a big win, it was just a little writing contest. But I came in and I walked in the theater and I sat down, and there was only a couple people, the people around the theater. And I was like, is anyone going to, I said, hi, I'm Sadie Katz. And the older gentleman said, oh my God, we thought you were a big Jewish woman. He was old, because of your voice and your name. They're you're just a little petite blonde. And so that was kind of a fun, silly, it's kind of fun.
That's hilarious. What have you been writing since you've been locked down, and how was that for you as that writer, as that actress?
I can't say it. I don't need to be obnoxious, but I actually wrote a rom-com with another very, very talented writer who I'm super stoked about it. It's not an indie rom-com. It's something that if it gets picked up, it will be produced on a bigger level with hopefully, named actors on an A-list level. And it's definitely along the comedy of a physical female comedy along the lines of Bridesmaids. And I'm a fan of rom-coms. I love horror movies, but I co-wrote another, the Circus Road, and I was on the fence about how it turned out as a fun movie, but I wanted it to be more of a comedy. And I really, during COVID, which we're still in, I had this idea for a long time. I thought it was a slam dunk. And, it did give me time to write this comedy. And I got to write it back and forth with this other really talented writer who was young and younger than me. And we just kind of kept going 10 pages back and forth. And we wrote it in 2 months. But the fact was we were very we'd take a week and write 10 pages. And then she would basically fix my 10 pages, and then I'd fix her 10 pages and write 10 more. It was really an amazing experience. And I have really good feelings on the script. I don't want to jinx it, but I hope that you'll review it when it comes by and you'll go, oh my God, and then have me back on the show.
And you let me know. I'm a movie whore, so I love watching movies,
That's great. I know you've watched so many movies. Out of curiosity, I know you probably can't pick a favorite, but what would be one of your favorites? What's your favorite?
I always start with this. I always start with It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. It's on TV, classic movies, if you remember that. Every comedian was in that movie. Great movie. And then I go to 1973, Enter the Dragon, because that Bruce Lee made me want to be a martial art. And then I start to work my way up, if that makes sense. So it's the things that left the last impression on me. You can think of, what was it? What was the John Belushi film that John Landau directed? What was it? House something? Animal House. I'm thinking of Animal House. So I kind of work my way up from those things like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're definitely a man. Those are all man movies.
Well, hey, I could go into beaches, and things like that.
Oh my God, I haven't even thought of that.
Well,
That's the saddest movie ever.
Anything that can make a man cry is a good movie. They just have to acknowledge it.
Oh, I know. I feel like men cry in like male movies all the time. Like there's what's the guy movie that all men get choked up about? Is it
Rudy?
Not
remember Rudy?
Oh yeah, Rudy. Oh gosh,
if you remember Brian's song,
Gladiator.
Gladiator,
song,
yeah.
Gladiator. All men like Gladiator, right? And what's the one with is it Brad Pitt? What's the one where it's the two brothers? It's the two brothers, and they're like in the West, and
you're not thinking of
goes back and forth.
The other one would be Good Will Hunting, maybe.
Oh my God, that's a great movie. That's really good.
Yeah,
you're naming like the classics, like just great movies.
I just think of stuff off the top of my head that are
like
feel-good movies or things like that,
I was obsessed. So when I was a teenager, from the video store that I went to, they would always give me the posters, because they would rotate the posters.
Yeah.
And he would give them to me for free. This sweet little Asian man who didn't speak English, so I don't think he watched any of the movies, but he got great movies. And he would give me all the posters. I was like a teen. I think I was like 13 or 14. So I had Age of Innocence on the wall, Reality Bites, Singles, and I'm trying to think. But those were like my main posters I was in love with. And I was super obsessed with Age of Innocence. And for a while, I had Clueless on my wall, of course. I was very obsessed.
Clueless was a classic. It still is a classic film.
I know. I can't believe it came out. What is it, 20 years ago?
Well, yeah. See, and this is interesting. Clueless would actually be considered a classic film on the TCM channel now. Do you believe that?
I know. Stop it. No, I can't believe it. It's really upsetting.
And the reason for that, Sadie, is because I asked Robert Osborne, who was the host of that when he was still alive, I go, what do you consider a classic film? He goes, a classic film could be from 2 years ago. And I go, really? He goes, yes. And I go, well, okay, that kind of makes sense coming from Robert Osborne at that point. And this was 7 years ago he said that. And I thought that was interesting. I never forgot that. And it made sense. As time goes on, it makes sense.
Well, yeah. Did you see Palm Springs?
No.
It just came out. Well, I saw it at the drive-in. It just came out. And there were some aspects of the movie that felt
I'm sorry. Palm Springs, the one from Florida?
The one that just came out with Andy Samberg. No,
I didn't see it yet. This is my issue. It's hard to see everything now because they're coming out on different platforms. So for example, some people aren't watching on Amazon. Some people don't subscribe to like Hulu. I think Hulu is the better platform because you get the. Some people aren't doing Apple. I'm not watching Apple shows because I'm a PC guy. I'm an Android guy. Or else I'm watching that stuff. And that's my only issue. Unless I can get a hold of the publicist. Sometimes you can't. A lot of them you don't even know who's around anymore. Then it's about getting the links.
Yeah. Well, Palm Springs, I had the feeling when I watched it, it kind of does a little bit of like Groundhog's Day, repeating on like a time loop. But when I saw it, I was like, just the timing, I don't want to give anything away, but the message of the movie was really applicable to today, what we're going through, just by coincidence. And there was a lot about the movie that felt like an instant classic. Like it was just enjoyable, and it was just so fun to watch, but it had so much heart to it, and it just felt like a movie that it would stay with you forever, and like you could watch, you know, multiple times. And I really loved it. Like I had like very strong feelings towards it, and it just captured time. Maybe that's what a classic is. It kind of captures a certain time period. I don't know. Do you think
Talk
so?
about going to that drive-in theater. What was that like? Because I haven't had the opportunity to do that. I'm still in the house kind of by myself in Vegas.
So I grew up in Orange County, and there was a drive-in theater by us. So that was like one of my favorite things to do. Is my mom's, you know, boyfriend or whatever had a truck, and they would put a mattress in the back, and we would go and watch, you know, drive-in movies. I would always fall asleep, but I loved sleeping under the stars in the drive-in, and they had the, you know, you'd hook up the radio with the stick to the thing. So they had knocked, you know, when we lost drive-ins, they knocked down the drive-in and they put a housing track. And so every time I drove by it, I was like, oh, that was my favorite thing. And the first thing I did when I got my driver's license was go to the drive-in. And like literally a few months after that, they got rid of it. So now there's one called the Tiki Drive-In in Montclair. And my fiance Miles and I have been going every Friday. And it is, I have to tell you, it's to me like super magical. It's been the one thing that I actually enjoy going there more than a movie theater, because it's just like, it's cool. You're in like your own little capsule, but then you get to go out, you stand in line, and some people dress up, which is kind of cool. Like even if it's a bad movie, it's kind of enjoyable because you're sitting in your car, you're munching as loud as you want, the stars are out, you can unroll your window, you know, you've got it on the speaker in your car, and you know, if it's a bad movie, you can kind of go like, oh my God, I don't like this movie. But it's just being out. I don't know if it's because of COVID that's making it, you're just so appreciative to do something, or I just think drive-ins are so cool. They play the old commercials. So that's really cool.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. And I can't believe that it's not jammed packed. I mean, it's busy, but it's not like super busy. I think people who aren't like experiencing drive-ins and like appreciating that, I don't know. They have Mexican food there. It's like old school greasy Mexican food, and that's kind of a perk. I
Just
know
like an Orange County girl would like it.
Yes. Well, and I know with going to the movies, like the one big perk was having alcohol, like the bars were opening up at all these theaters. And part of it was like a lot of movies I didn't especially like, and I felt really trapped in the theater because I get a little bit of ADD if I don't like a movie. So you're like drinking the wine and you're eating the food and you can't see anything and you can't move. And you know, there's people on their cell phone, which drives me crazy. And you know, the movies it's so hit or miss. But the drive-in, it's like you've got your blanket, you're not worried about other people and their activities, and it's something really fun. And you get two movies, and so there's an intermission. You could stay for both movies. I don't know. I think it's a really awesome way to watch movies. I love it.
I miss that experience because when I grew up in Connecticut, it was always fun to go to the movie theaters. That was always really good. Talk about, would you go to a movie? I kind of already know the answer. Would you go back to a movie theater between now and the end of the year? And if you wouldn't, why?
Yeah. I mean, here's the one thing. I don't know if I would want to sit in a movie theater with a mask on and not be able to like have a Diet Coke. And I'm not a big popcorn person, but like have something kind of healthy I try to pick something kind of healthy from the snack bar. But like the movies, I don't want to sit and feel, I mean, the movies is about escaping. So sitting there with a mask on, to me, like for 2 hours like this, watching a movie is not going to be enjoyable at all. So no, but not because I would be worried about COVID, just because it wouldn't be that much fun at all. So that would be a deterrent. Would I go to the movies under the stars, socially distanced outside? Of course, but not with the mask on where I couldn't like enjoy it. No, I mean, if everyone was like in their little pod space like they do at the parks, yes, of course. I mean, you know, I wear a mask and stuff when I go to the grocery store or wherever they need, but I don't know if I feel like I would want to sit in the theater like that. After 2 hours, I would be very frustrated and kind of bummed out.
And
I mean, what
it would
about
be
you?
very
I don't know.
difficult to do that too, because it's a challenge. I asked all my movie reviewer people, and I go, hey, you know, I've been in Georgia theaters, to theaters in Tennessee when we're shooting our shows, and I'm like, I wouldn't go. So I wouldn't want to subject the audience going if I wouldn't go. That's not right. And then the other thing is everything is built for home entertainment now because that's just how it is. And it's not going away. It's going to increase. I do support theaters because things should be seen on the big screen. I do support that. I've been wanting to help Regal Theaters for years. And I said, you guys are going to need my help. Look where I am and look where they're not. That's really sad because you are the person that creates these things and everybody wants to see the work on the big screen. And that's sad. And I love Lemley Theaters, Bob and Lemley Theaters, the oldest theater chain in the United States. I'm still going to help them one way or another because I love, as soon as I come in,
So I would go.
Hollywood, you know?
Yeah. I
That's
would
important
go
to me.
if they had us like wear a face shield. Like if that's what they needed, I would go and say, you know what? That's like Limley. Like they've been really good to independent filmmakers. I've had
Absolutely.
a lot of films premiere there. So if you put it in that context of like save the theaters, and perhaps like they give out the clear face shields, if that's what it takes to open it, or they even say, you know, look, watch a movie here and support your theater to save the theater. I think I might, or I think I might pay, you know, $20 for the movie. Like to say, if this is going to make a difference of saving the theater before, so it doesn't shut down. Yeah, like maybe I skip a movie at the drive-in theater and send them $20 if it really is going to save the theater, because we can't lose movie theaters because then you're going to lose a lot. Number one, you're going to lose like the big movies, which closes down the big studios, which closes down a bunch of jobs, which closes down like a certain quality in Hollywood, which makes it harder to find the good films. I mean, like there's you know, then the unions change, then so much changes. And I think, you know, that's part of Hollywood is having these big blockbuster fantasy movies that, you know, do employ people to make a whole world. And, you know, that's what makes Hollywood mystical and magical and keeps you striving for more, you know. And
Well, that's why I think it's fun to have
so
people on the shows because this is your livelihood. I'm recession proof and I'm stock proof. I can do anything where I want because I've always shot small. So when I've got stuff set up either in Miami, even though I don't have to go, Tennessee, I only have to go twice a year, but I've got enough shows shot up because I knew what was coming. Los Angeles, Las Vegas, I've got all that stuff set up already. So even when I go into our private studio, it's just us and one guest. I've always done it that way. So my job is to help get the word out on everybody. But, you know, as that actress, as you are, what is that like not to be able to go to and do an independent film right now. That's got to be tough for you. And then now you got to have a doctorate and maybe nurse and then spend more money. That's not good for independent films, you know?
It's ridiculous. I mean, I do know a couple people shooting right now, and just a few, and I'm sure they're breaking rules. Like they'll post a few pictures with the mask on, and then they'll have like a group shot with them around the slate with no mask on. So, you know, whatever. That's the problem is what they should do is they should quarantine the whole cast for 2 weeks before, and then when everyone's fine, then they should shoot the movie. But on real indie films, that takes a lot of budget.
Right.
So that would mean you have to feed everyone and you have to house them for 2 weeks before they start shooting, which is going to be difficult. But I think I would ask them, which is to quarantine at home, sign a contract that they won't leave their homes for 2 weeks, which is totally doable right now during this time period. So I'm going to be isolated. Everyone in my household will be isolated. I'll check in every day with the producer to confirm that I've been isolated, you know. Then when I show up on set, everyone's been isolated. Then there's no need for masks. They can still do temperature checks. And then moving forward. I mean, the idea to say that everyone's not going to, you know, on these soap operas, they are, I know I just jumped, but on these soap operas, they're having the actors do these intimate scenes with a mannequin. And then
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes. Then when they go into kiss, they're having the actors have their partners, like their husbands or boyfriends, move in, and then they're kissing that. And then they're digitally putting the actors in. This is, I mean, Google this. This is like on the news. This is a true thing. And I have friends who are in soaps, and that's their solution. And I'm like, acting is about reacting to another human. So, you know, with the exception of doing like a movie with, you know, a lot of CGI or cartoons, that's ridiculous. Like, we're supposed to be working off the other person. That's good acting. Yeah. So you're asking actors to do things to mannequins, and it's like you don't even get what's going. Like, then there's no craft in it. It's just ridiculousness, and it's eventually going to kill the industry because they're going to start CGIing these, you know, actors, and we won't have actors anymore. Which, you know, it is a craft. Like, it's an art form. There's certain people you see and you go, that was a fucking brilliant performance. And that's what makes acting, like, you know, this exceptional thing when it's done well.
And I told people, get prepared for that. It's all about AI technology, voiceovers, voice acting, you know, solutions never were going to go away. Being able to react, adapt, and be flexible, and don't be afraid to change. If you can do those things, especially in what you do, you'll be able to survive it. If you can't, you're not going to be able to survive it, and your life does depend on it now. And I tell people these things. When I'm reaching out to these companies and I want to help save their brand, I love anything that's environmentally friendly and sustainable, I'm telling them, my job is to save your life. And I can do that because I already got my numbers. I'm recession proof. I'm stock proof. I don't have to worry about that stuff, but you do.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of like, I'm like, oh, I should take a motion capture class. I should take, you know, even if it's over Zoom. Voiceovers, I've thought about taking right now. The voiceovers and the voiceover actors in LA are relatively, you know, to break into that is difficult because it's a small group. It's like a clique of voiceover actors I've been working for years. So that's something everyone's always like, oh, your voice is so distinct, you should think of doing that. And I've been like, well, that's a whole other career, and acting's hard enough, and writing and producing and directing. And so I'm like, for me to do that is like a whole other career.
You got to do it. Yeah. I started doing that in 1991. And then the gift for that was, remember when everybody was trying to replace Johnny Carson and they couldn't do it? Chevy Chase, Joan Rivers. and then Montel was on. I mean, well, Montel was
Yeah.
today, but what's his face that night?
Arsenio Hall.
Yeah. And I'm like,
Arsenio Hall.
they couldn't replace Johnny
Yeah.
as a TV thing. I'm like, I better start working on voiceovers now. That was the hint for me then. This is the last hint for people now. You have to do voiceovers in AI technology. The sooner you get onto that now, because it's not going anywhere, as you know.
Right. Right. And I mean, what was the movie Ready or Not or Hide and Seek, where like they had totally redigitalized her face, so she's already this beautiful actress, but they made her eyes bigger.
Yeah.
And what was that movie?
Well,
Do you know which one I'm talking about?
yeah, I do now. I forgot the name of the title, but I know what you're talking about. All of that qualifies in. Think of Avatar, everybody's shooting. Think of what the Matrix, what they have to do now. Think what Tom Hanks went through in Australia.
Yeah.
If you get COVID, it's not going away. You've got to learn how to live with it a different way. That's not good, So that's what.
Yeah, and I think even if it went away, it will be taken advantage of to shoot things the way people want to shoot them. Maybe not in indie films, that's not going to be an option. So
yeah,
they'll have to. I mean, the thing is, I think there will continue to be more and more indie films, and people will be more and more receptive to them because there's only going to be blockbuster films and indie films. There won't be like $5 million films. So in a way, it's good for me if I want to continue just doing smaller indie films. But the problem is they keep paying less and less, and they don't go up. Like SAG ultra low budget. Like sometimes you're like, what are you talking about? $125 a day. Like that's what SAG ultra low budget is, and that's for a 12-hour day. Like I have to negotiate to get over that rate. And if let's say you fall in love with the script and then everyone's agreeing to it, you go, how much is that an hour? And I mean, people have worked on sets, understand if you're doing SAG ultra low budget, you're doing like 10 pages a day. And until you've actually been on a set, you have no idea how much work that is. Or you're doing 8 pages a day, let's say, or 6. And you're in a night shoot and it's freezing cold and you're like running. And I mean, I would never complain because I absolutely love what I do. But until you invite someone to the set and they see what you do, they're like, oh my God, that's insane. Like your day is insane. And you're like, yeah, I just worked really hard for like $14 an hour.
Sadie, when I learned all that stuff, when I was doing stand-in for Death Warrant for Jean-Claude Van Damme. I did 3 films back in 1991. So I worked for like a year and a half as an extra, as a stand-in. I'm like, I'm not interested in doing this. You got to love to do that. Going to a set for me is not love. Watching movies for me, that's the love. That's when I figured all that stuff out at that point. And I'm like, I understand why people love this set, but I was like, no, I could read 2 books while I'm wasting time. That's how I looked at it.
Well, on indie films, like real indie films, there's no wasting time if you're shooting real fast. So like I've invited people like, hey, they go, oh my God, it'd be so fun. I go, okay, you want to come watch? And they're there for like 6 hours. And they're like, wow, like you just did that scene. You just said the same 5 lines for 2 hours. And I'm like, yeah, that's how it works. And they go, and you had to like scream and cry and, you've been lying in mud for 2 hours. I'm like, yeah, that's the job. And they're like, I kind of am ready to go home. I go, oh, they go, it's freezing cold out here. And like, I can't watch you do this anymore. It feels like you're being abused. I'm like, no, this is great. I love this job. It's amazing. Stay for lunch.
I know.
We're going to have lunch in 3 hours.
Sadie, we got about 60 seconds.
You got to love it. Oh, good.
Give your social media links and give inspiration to those people who want to get into the acting world to do what you do. What would you say to them?
Oh, you better love it. That's it. You better love it, or else get another job if you don't love it. And I'm on Instagram under Sadie Katz. And if you want to follow me on Facebook under Sadie Katz, you'll find me. And Twitter under Sadie Katz. But follow me on Instagram, or if you want to get an autograph or something, or just yell at me and tell me I'm a horrible person, sadiekatz.me is my website. And thanks for having me. You're so awesome.
But she's not a
Yay. I
horrible
could talk to
person.
you
She's a
forever.
nice, sweet person. I've been watching her stuff for years. She really is. And again, my hat goes off to you, and congratulations on doing that sequel, because it's about time, and that's a good thing. But also, keep writing, because you are a good writer. Keep doing what you're doing. And remember, she is a producer and a director too. So when you can do all four of those things, you got to be doing something right.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was
You're
so
welcome.
fun.
I'm glad you came on. So when you get all your stuff done, you give it to me, and we'll talk about it. And I'll bring the other two girls on. All right?
Oh, yes. All right, great.
So for that, hey, this is Brian Sebastian, Movie Reviews and More, the Women's Broadcast TV Network, ITube 247 out of Franklin, Tennessee, and WomenOnTV.tv. If you see someone without a smile, please give them one of yours, because the world needs it. Right, Sadie?
Yeah. 100%.
See you next week.